So when I landed in the Azores, I started doing my the family I was raised with. They had a daughter by the name of Isabella, Florinda Isabella, or as she's known as Bella. Her husband was a military service member, and did his service in the military and in the military offices in Ponta Delgada. So as soon as I landed, he had me as it's by law. You're automatically, if you're born in the '80s up to a certain age, you're automatically inscripted, and therefore he wanted to make sure that my military file was clear and that I had no problems. They had actually showed up at my sister or at Bella's door, my sister's door, um, to ensure that I would show up for my conscription, letting her know that I had a conscription file open. And so we did that, and I started to, on my own, started doing intelligence on. I started realizing there was a lot of uh, people that were not Azorian or Portuguese ascendancy, but were raised there by families. And I started to investigate and found that there was a large amount of Israeli and Saudi Arabian children that were ended up there either by their parents being pulled out of aircraft um, as part of setups, or were part of forced landings by um, groups that were connected to Lebanese organized crime in Canada, and Portuguese corrupt police families that were part of um, uh, forcing aircraft to or forcing people and arresting people out of aircraft. And I started to investigate and do intelligence on um, the same thing being murder victims of Canadian Portuguese communities involved in that community, where they would um, have families drop off their children at babysitters, and those families were then um, investigated by these members, and they would often end up being murder victims or disappearing, and the children would end up in the Azores under the care of whoever families, while their families were being defrauded and their properties were being sold and stolen and defrauded, and then sold as part of uh, falsified inheritance papers and all that. So there's a large amount of Israelis um, and a large amount of Saudi Arabians that are in the islands and reside in the islands without knowing they were victims, or the children of murder victims for inheritance fraud, and property frauds that were happening in conjunction with the Portuguese community, connected to Lebanese criminal organizations that worked in conjunction with Portuguese Azorians. So it's I actually had it reported my findings and all that, because I think it would be really important for those uh, people to have DNA tests and find their families through DNA matches, and find their history and be brought back to their families, as there's quite a large number. And it's important to give those families closures and those individuals, and give them an opportunity to meet their real families.